Hello everyone! So I decided that the next beer we're going to try is the gueuse. That's French, and I am pronouncing it correctly because je parle français. As weird as it sounds, gueuse. Gueuse. A gueuse is a really special kind of beer. It is made by combining 1, 2, and 3-year-old lambics, which are another type of beer. And lambics are crazy cool because they use wild yeast. Like any wild creature, a wild yeast is difficult to tame. The biggest flavor characteristic from a wild yeast is going to be a sour flavor. It takes a lot of expertise to work with a wild yeast. Another flavor characteristic from a wild yeast is what people refer to as barnyard. And there's lots of different descriptors that go along with the whole barnyard adjective. And I was on Beer Advocate recently and somebody posted something that said, man, flavor characteristics that people are, the words people are using to describe these things are so wacky now, man. Like, somebody the other day just used the word horse blanket. That's actually a pretty common descriptor for beers that use wild yeasts. So what does a barnyard or horse blanket beer taste like? Well, I guess it has sort of a musty, rustic, farmy, hay-like quality. Something you have to experience to know. Does it sound gross? It could be gross if you made it and you didn't know what you were doing. But if you know what you're doing, they are so good. So gueuse beers are Belgian beers. As you can see, this one's corked. There's a lot of back and forth about corking beers, and a lot of people feel that it's just an aesthetic thing. It's more expensive, and on the shelf it looks cool. But then some people say it helps with the bottle conditioning. It does look cool, and regardless of the cork, I'm excited to try my very first gueuse. Something that is worth mentioning about corked beers is that whether the cork is an aesthetic thing or not, and I'm talking about the cork itself, these beers have been aged. This beer in particular has been aged for 3 years. And aging of beers, just like aging of wine, will improve upon the flavor depending on what kind of beer you're working with. And when you're working with something this complicated, the more you age it, the better. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of fermentables right there at the front. You're going to just have a lot of stuff going on that needs to be way more refined. And the way you refine that is by being patient and bottling that stuff and waiting. And that's something I would have to work on if I worked at a brewery. Definitely. So I've got to scrub this mug because you always want to pour a beer into a clean mug. Oily residue is going to affect all kinds of things, particularly the head of your beer. It'll sink. But when we pour the beer in here, we are going to expect the gueuse to be a pale yellow to a dark gold color, very clear. And we're going to be expecting a big, fat, moosey head. Ooh, I'm really excited to pop a cork on a beer. It's so festive. I've never done it before. I just popped the cork, and right away I'm smelling. I love sour beers. I haven't had a gueuse yet, but I love Flanders Reds and Oude Bruins, and I can already smell what I describe as not just a sour character, but what they call umami, which means a very satisfying, savory taste. And it's one of the main flavor descriptors, just like sweet, sour, bitter, all of that. And umami, most people haven't heard of it, but that is umami all the way, and it smells so good. And I can kind of smell that horse blanket in there. It's like this, I don't know, walking through a farm, walking through a hayfield kind of thing, and it's good. It's so, you gotta experience it to understand. So I'm not seeing that brilliant clarity we were promised at all. It looks hazy to me. And the head is very bubbly in the sense that any of these bubbles could burst at any time. So not quite sure what to expect. Wow, that is fascinating. It's not like your typical other sours. It's definitely got the barnyard thing going on. Other sours have more of a sweet thing going on too. They're more fruity. This is very sour. Okay, not like lemon head sour, but very sour for any kind of sour beer. But it does have something really interesting to it, and I think it's very, very flavorful and fun. I think that people would need to get into sours before they get into this. It's a little bit more bitter, but the bitterness is very, very slight. And I'm comparing it to other sours, like Flanders Red, Oud Bruins, and Lambics. Oh, it's got this zingy smell. This sort of piney lemon zest sort of thing coming out. Reminds me a bit of Christmas. The sourness, I mean, it hits you, but it's more later on. It develops. It's something I'm gonna love. I mean, it's something I think that for a lot of people, they'd be like, what? When they drink it, but I kind of like those kinds of beers, and it's fun. It's fun. I want to try more. I want to try more of these, because you can never just judge a beer if you can't judge a beer properly, basically, if you've only had one of the style, right? Because you have nothing to judge it against. So let's buy some more gueuzes, but too bad they're really difficult to find.